Hi, Sophie here. I recently got a question. Do you know how to make the brush/texture of the line art modifier different instead of just completely solid? I'm going for a gritty pencil look for the line art basically. And as someone just starting to learn the grease pencil line art modifier myself, I would like to know the answer to this too. I'm pretty sure there's a way, but let's find out together. So I'll be explaining this using this free brush pack for grease pencil. These brushes make use of both brush settings and also material settings to create textured brushes. The materials themselves have a texture integrated into them. You can see these materials have a texture style, and in most cases the line type is dots. So we'll see how that works when applied to the line art modifier. Currently my line art modifier is looking like this, and that's because the line art modifier is using just a black material. It has a line type, and a solid style. So I can append the materials from this brush pack by just clicking on the blend file and going into the materials, and I'll append all of them just to play around with it. And then I can either add them to this object, my line art object, by pressing the plus icon and then finding them in this drop down, and then back in the line art modifier I can change the material like this. But a bit quicker would just be to not add another material slot at all and to just use the drop down to change whichever material is showing up in the line art modifier. So this was the one material from that blend file that had a line type. And so you can see the effect of the texture is pretty subtle. I was getting really cool results trying some of the other textures, but they have a dots line type. And so this, compared to the line type, it doesn't fill in the gaps between the dots, between the individual points. So that's not super useful until we change the line type to line. So these textures, these materials were definitely not made with this in mind. So there might be a bit of playing around that you would need to do. I think back in the line art modifier, I'll increase my line thickness a bit just to see these textures a bit more. If I try some of the different materials and switching them to line to just show you the different looks, they didn't all look dotted like this, I swear. For example, with this material, with a line type, we're getting a lot closer to that messy, grainy pencil look. So this look was achieved with the Vegetation 4 material, converted from a dots type to a line type. And I think it's really impressive and really nice. I will say though, it was the only texture material that had such a nice effect. Alright, I've sort of been able to gather that the gaps in the line art have to do with the texture images themselves. And the nicest look I was able to get working with the line art modifier is really long and very horizontal. Ideally, you wouldn't want gaps on either the left or the right side, but then in between these 2 points, some variation in the thickness should create for a nice texture. I'll just turn this transparent with color to alpha filter and Krita. Then I've saved it as a PNG so I can have transparency. And modifying the thickness of the line art modifier really increases pretty much the thickness of these strokes without changing how spaced apart they are. So that was really interesting. I was trying to find ways to change the gaps in between the line art modifier, like in between the points, and I couldn't find any way of changing the gaps either by simplifying or increasing the amount of geometry. It seems like they're still equally spaced apart. And so when I was using a texture that resulted in gaps in the line art, I didn't have any way to bridge those gaps. So it really has to do with the texture image itself. And it seems like this is the kind of texture image that you want to use with the line art modifier. Also note that typically textured brushes make use of both brush settings and also material settings to create really cool textured looks, like having the radius or the strength of a brush be modified or any like randomized settings. So though we can't capture these same brush settings, stuff like the thickness of the line art, the opacity, adding a bit of noise to it. All of that is possible with other modifiers. I thought this tutorial did a really good job of explaining that. And so this sort of approach combined with a textured material like we've looked at today, I think would get you the closest to what you want. So I would say definitely this is possible, and I wish you the best of luck. Update, just for fun, I made some textures. I wanted to see what sort of looks that I could get just creating simple texture images and plugging them into the lineart modifier. So there will be a free download link below if you'd like to use them. It's pretty simple. You can just append from the blend file, go into the materials, and you'll find them under SJ. And you can plug that material into your lineart modifier. I've also been working to make the switch over to Blender 4.3 with like the new Grease Pencil 3. So similar process, you can append them, but if you append them from the specific Blender 4.3 file, they actually have cover images now, which is very handy. They will also show up in the asset browser as the images. You still have to add them manually to the lineart modifier in the materials properties. You can change the color of this texture. If you have a blend value of 1, that will result in colored textured line art. And like before, the line thickness can be modified to get different looks. So yeah, I was kind of just curious to see what I could create. Feel free to play around with these textures, see what kind of looks you can get. I hope you enjoy.